Why it sucks to be Islam Makhachev. Being the best in the world is hard work, but being constantly compared to an anomaly, now that's just unfair. Especially when the person you're being compared to is not just your mentor, your coach, or your friend, but your brother in everything but blood. You are Islam Makhachev, a man destined for greatness, yet forever measured against the legend who paved the way for you. You are a fighter who, despite becoming a champion in his own right, lives under the weight of an inescapable shadow. It's not easy carrying the torch left by Khabib Nurmagomedov, the undefeated, untouchable force who left the sport at the peak of his power. And no matter what you do, the question never changes. Why aren't you Khabib, huh? And that sucks. Thanks to your best buddy paving the way and building the mythology of Dagestan in the UFC, it doesn't take too long for you to follow him into the top MMA promotion. Your buddy debuted in 2012. You made yours in 2015, UFC 187, against Leo. For some reason, you were told not to speak his surname, but whatever. You submit him by a rear naked choke, just as Khabib did to his first opponent in 2012, and with just one win, you were already being talked about as the future lightweight champion, following in the footsteps of your best friend who had maintained his undefeated record. If he was able to, then you definitely were going to as well. Khabib 2.0. Oh, that one's gonna haunt you for a while, possibly forever. You lost. Worst part, you lost by knockout. He's no Nurmagomedov. Ouch. That was the prevailing narrative following your first defeat, and from that point on, you were relegated from Khabib's second coming to the guy who follows him around. You win your comeback, and the fight after that, and the one after that, but people just don't seem to care. Your best friend recently came back from a 2-year layoff and he's on fire, mauling everyone he faces, and is this close to becoming the lightweight champion. And you're happy about it. You understand that there's an order in place, as dictated by Father's plan. Khabib goes first, and then it's your turn. And until then, you remain a constant companion, one step behind and always in his shadow. You celebrated his championship triumph at UFC 223. You had his back at UFC 229 when he took part of the biggest fight in MMA history against his most hated rival. He counted on you the most through every championship training camp, and every now and then, he would tell you, "Brother, your time is coming." Eventually, it did, but not really. UFC 254 was the end of the Khabib era, and as distraught as you were with the loss of your beloved coach and your friend retiring from his prime, you picked yourself up, wiped off the tears, and went straight into the training room. With Khabib retired and your coach watching from above, it was now up to you to carry the torch of power, and the first step would be reclaim your belt that your buddy had vacated. Wait, something's wrong. Why is nobody talking about you? This was supposed to be your time, your reign, your era, but instead of you, they're celebrating someone else, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy. Sacrilege. You're training harder now, and you're actually on a finishing spree. Submissions and knockouts for everybody while you're doing this to the likes of Drew Dober and Bobby Green. That other guy's been knocking out and submitting championship contenders like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and Michael Chandler. That guy isn't just good, he's dangerous. As per the stats, Charles Oliveira is the most lethal competitor in UFC history. And guess what? You've been there. Khabib was regarded as indestructible, never dropped even once in his career, let alone finished by TKO. But with you, because of that dirty one on your record, it is always a possibility, especially against a finisher like Charles Oliveira. Doesn't matter though, you know what you know. This was in the making for years as far as you were concerned. This was destiny. Not only do you outstrike him, you submit the guy with the most submissions in UFC history in the second round. And when that title belt was wrapped around your waist, destiny was realized, and for the first time since you began your UFC career, you were regarded as invincible. Finally, they are calling you Khabib 2.0 now. For real. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. Your first title defense was against a featherweight, the featherweight champion who was also the pound-for-pound #1, and you were expected to squash the smaller guy and claim the mantle of pound-for-pound king. Easy. But you had to fly all the way to Australia, and there was something different about the place, especially the shorter duration for dehydration. The weight cut was rough enough already, and for this important champion versus champion fight, which had your title on the line, you walked into the cage not feeling your best. But the opponent was a featherweight, so even at half strength, you could overpower. Oh, no. That aura of invincibility you built from your dismantling of Charles went poof. undone by a smaller man who was literally laughing at you as you had his back. He also ended the fight on top, punching you into the canvas you tried to cover up. To make matters worse, your face, bloodied and bruised, served as further ammunition for the old narrative. You ain't no Khabib. This never happened to him, and yet it happened to you. And to make matters worse, some fans and experts thought you actually lost the fight. For the sake of the lightweight division and your reputation as a champion, you had to right this wrong, and quick. And as luck would have it, the opportunity for revenge came sooner than you expected at UFC 294, with Volkanovski replacing the injured Charles on short notice. This time, the cards were in your favor. The event was in your second backyard, and with proper hydration, you felt like your real self. You marched to that octagon like a man on a mission to prove the doubters wrong, and you did. And fanatically. A first round head kick KO was the way to shut them up. Well, shut most of them up. There are still a few of them piling on social media, screaming about how you lost the first fight and Volkanovski was not at his best in his rematch, so it doesn't really count. Who cares? You certainly don't. A win is a win. You're no Khabib. Just close that out. Now those sting. By now, you've established yourself as a credible, even dominant champion, but not as some invincible force of nature. Even when you faced Dustin Poirier at UFC 302, you had a fight for the win. You were challenged, pushed, and even bloodied. You submitted him in the 5th round, and it was the fight of the night, a possible fight of the year contender, but people were already bringing up UFC 242, when your best buddy, who is now your coach, steamrolled Dustin Poirier without shedding a single drop of blood, while you had to bleed. So this is where you stand today. Pound for pound, #1 in the UFC, and for some time now. Your last 3 opponents too were on the pound for pound list, and you beat them all. Finished them all even. If you win your next fight, you'll break the long-lasting record at lightweight with 4 consecutive title defenses. BJ Penn couldn't. Ben Henderson couldn't. Khabib himself didn't. But you have a pretty good chance of getting to 4 and setting a record that likely won't be broken for a long time. But even if you do, hell, even if you get 6 title defenses, that KO loss from years ago, that blood you have bled, the struggle and pain you have gone through, those remain fresh and will never fade. And you will face the same question until the end of your illustrious career and beyond. Why aren't you Khabib, huh? No matter how elite you are, you are constantly reminded that you are not indestructible, not invincible, not a force of nature, not Khabib, and that sucks.